member of the public that wants to comment? Morning, Henry.
Reader's Digest version of the MPO was originally, now it's called the MTPO. MPO was formed after Eisenhower basically did the Interstate Act and was throwing all these federal funds into interstates across America. Governor Robert Docking decided that planning commissions that were made up of the city and county could be the MPO. In about 2001, Joan Wagner appointed me to the Metropolitan Planning Commission, and we were then the MPO. We were the first MPO to ever have public involvement, where we actually met the federal guidelines that is required to get the federal funds in the community. We were also the first ones to notice that the county had not been complying with the requirement to submit a capital improvement program. So the idea was, when you had a metropolitan planning organization, MPO, that you'd look at the CIP of the county, you'd look at the CIP of the city, and then you'd have public involvement, and the community then would actually pick where the federal funds would go. You'd engage the public. It's a novel idea of getting the public involved in the decision-making process, but I thought it was a good thing. So I actually met with the guy that ran the federal highway, and he laughed at me for thinking that I was ambitious enough to change how we did things. And we gave it every effort we could. And there were a lot of the planning commissioners and MPO members, which is all the same, that felt the same way. It was amazing to have a consensus that, you know, that we do need to change how we do things. Well, it wasn't very long after that we were disbanded. You know, hey, don't you dare try to change how we're doing things, because it's back to how impossible it is to introduce a new idea. And it was a shame that the governing bodies between the county and the city decided to disband the organization. Because I'll tell you, you ought to talk to my friend David Banks, who just ran for city council. He said one of the main things that he said is that, you know, I think the planning commissions actually worked better when they were together. And not having the city involved in the, out in the 3-mile radius is very important. But what I'm getting at today is we really need to focus on the MTPO, because a friend of mine told me, he said, I don't think they've even met in 3 years in person. And I, quite frankly, can't remember even the last time they had public involvement. And so why do I bring up this whole epistle today, or my sermon today, is because we need, if we want to bring back the boulevard, well, let's still put all the burden on the developers. Let's do it. Let's bring back the boulevard, but let's engage the MTPO. Let's engage the MTPO to take a look at the boulevard. And let's say, well, look, we've got a certain amount of federal funds, and we're gonna make an investment in the boulevard. Let's get way ahead of the situation. Instead of reacting every time a guy comes in with a plan and, hey, we got our hooks in you now, and now renovate my city. Because that's basically what it's like to be a developer in this town. You've got to beg for your porridge. And it's getting harder and harder. And actually, it's just getting to where it's just not worth it. I literally had to tell a client for the first time, you know, I don't think this is a place for your capital today. Let's wait. Let's see how things go. Because I have a certain obligation to get a return on the investment for my clients. Because like, you can't be in the position of like, well, why didn't you tell me? And that's kind of what this is nice about, being able to come here and have a little public comment, because the genesis of where we got, how we got here is important. We learn from our mistakes. Unfortunately, it feels like in our community, we don't do anything about it ever. And creating a more engaged MTPO today and getting public involvement of where these federal funds go, it's equally as important of the drum I've been beating of taking away $3.5 million in overhead to actually start putting money into infrastructure. But let's engage the public. Let's engage the public today of where these federal funds should go. If we want to bring back the boulevard, let's do it all together. Don't put the burden on the developer deal by deal. We've got a lot of work to do out there. I'm telling you, it was a good idea to tear down that hotel, and we should have done it. You know, sometimes opportunity knocks but once. But we have a big task ahead of us in a very blighted area, the White Lakes Mall, and how it got there today. Today it's not our fault, but it's our way of fixing it. And I'm telling you something, working on a property just down the street from White Lakes has made my job impossible. You know, I could never make a deal on that old Bennigan's because you're standing there and you see White Lakes just running down. So think about the MTPO, think about those federal dollars, because that's all I'm going to start doing now too. And I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Any other public comment?